We apologise for the short hiatus, but we are now back with our ultimate guide, this time to Convocation. Hey guys, Rich from Rich Me Gaming. Hope everyone is doing fantastically well. We are back with our Ultimate Guide series. We've taken a little bit of a break. As you guys have probably seen, I've been doing a lot of Marvel United videos, and just timing-wise, it's been quite difficult to do, but we are back. This time, it is going to be Convocation versus the Dark Dimension. You guys voted for it. I think it was over sort of 65-70% of the votes wanted to see this one. And joining me, as always, on this journey of absolute craziness is the one, the only, Mr. Quinn Duggan. Quinn, how the hell are you doing, sir? Huh?
No.
How you been?
No.
People have been seeing me still, but they haven't been seeing you. So I feel like the public have missed you, Quinn.
I mean, I don't know why.
Neither do I, to be honest with you. Quinn, Convocation, they're a fairly new affiliation to the game. I still think people are working out ways to play this affiliation. You know, we were literally just talking, weren't we, before we started recording, you know, interactions with Grunts, for example, and particular cards, and how that has now, you know, we basically last minute made a change, didn't we, to our no limit roster. But I think they're in a pretty good position overall as a heavy attrition based affiliation. But I still think people have yet to fully unlock their potential. What's your thoughts on Convocation as a whole at the moment?
Yeah, they had a bit of a rocky release in terms of the general opinion regarding them, but like there have been a few people like championing them over like the past few months. Like I've seen people get like a fair few games in them. There's the whole like extract game plan that Pentagon came up with, and that was on the Danger Room. That got quite a lot of people talking. And then there's people like Marcus who've been going for a more attrition style play style. And like I played a bit of Convocation myself actually, using a borrowed roster. And yeah, they're an interesting beast. Like they're definitely a lot better now that we know what the other side of their leadership does.
Yes,
It's definitely the best side.
yes, it's. I will get into it, but yeah, I've been playing them for a long time without one side of their leadership. Which, if you're gonna spoil it and release things, just spoil and release them all, right? Yeah. Don't keep it to just one side. Quick recap, guys, for how we are going to be doing this video. So me and Quinn have put together two rosters. One of them is a budget roster using the well-known format now. I think Mark originally came up with it of sort of the 3-box challenge, where we take the core box and then any other 3 boxes. And the idea is that we put together a budget roster. And then we've put together a no-limit roster where Quinn gets to spend all of my money, splurge it on whatever he wants, and yeah, basically spend absolutely anything.
You say this every time, like I don't actually own everything in the game, like of my own volition. Like
I know, I do know. So Quinn, let's jump straight in and take a look at the budget roster. So starting then, as we always like to do, with the characters, and we'll start with the 3 packs that we've brought along with us. So CP67, CP64, and CP65, and we're going to be taking all but one character from these packs. We'll talk about her maybe in a little bit, but we've got Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, we've got the Ancient One, we've got Baron Mordo, we've got Doctor Voodoo, and then we've got Hood. And then rounding out the roster, from a character perspective at least, we've got obviously 5 characters from the core box. Can you guess who they are, people? Yes, of course. It's Baron Zemo, Captain Marvel, Black Widow, Doctor Octopus, and I suppose the interchangeable one at the end, we've put in Ultron. He does have a little bit of synergy, doesn't he, Quinn, with mysticky stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty solid roster of 10. Let's address the elephant in the room, Quinn. Clea.
I think it's a bit rude to call her an elephant, for sure.
So we've chosen to not include her, which is interesting. I don't think we've done that before. I don't think we've chosen to not include an affiliated character from a box that we've bought. At least in the budget rosters. So what's the reason behind leaving her out?
Well, for one, she can kill herself with an action, which is always a mark of quality on a free threat. Yeah, she's real squishy. She's got, what, 2 physical defense, I want to say?
Yes.
She's immune to incinerate. Ooh. But, like, she goes down incredibly quickly. Her attacks are, like, meh at best. Sure, they have the mystic typing, but they're kind of 1 dice less than what you typically expect from a 3 threat. What else? She can move people, range 2. Great.
Yeah.
You could just have Lockjaw.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? Is that she doesn't, people have spoken about, she's a half decent back point hold. I'd rather have Mordo in my team.
Mordo can contribute to attrition with his ferocity of Citarac. He can move conditions about. He's got an actual good spender.
Yeah.
Mordo has a lot of things going for him. Also, he's got more stamina than Clea does.
He does.
And overall better defenses, even though he's not immune to incinerate.
Yeah. And the fact that he can give people more dice, and yes, there's a kicker on the back end of it, isn't there? Where it's not as good as what Thanos does, but he is, half the threat cost, but in reality, almost a third of the threat cost, because you're probably playing Thanos at 8 threat. So I really like him. I think he's the best back point holder. We've obviously got an option in here, Quinn, of 4 affiliated characters, which means we have got 4 characters who can be our leader, because Convocation introduced and still a completely unique thing. And I hope they do keep it unique, because I do like it.
I have a feeling that it's not going to be unique, but we'll see.
But the way their leadership works is not a single one of these characters actually has a leadership on their character card, do they? It's done in the form of a tactics card, which is both, I suppose, giveth and taketh, because it means that you get to be very flexible in terms of who's going to be your leader. So running at different threat levels, I think, becomes a lot easier.
I mean, if you want, you can be the only affiliation in the game with a 2-threat leader.
Yeah, this is true. Spoiler alert, it's not in any of our rosters. But it does use one of your 10. And I think
uses one of your 10, but not one of your 5.
But not one of your 5, yeah. Really, really important to clarify there. So what are we talking about? Well, they have a tactics card in the game called the Bar with No Doors. And it has a leadership ability. In fact, it has 2 leadership abilities on there. So we'll start with the first one. And it's called the Bar with No Doors. And then this one is the Moons of Munapore. When an allied character makes a mystic attack against a character without an activated token, hang on a minute, guys, it's a bit wordy, this one, it may reroll one of its attack dice. Nice. When an allied character without an activated token makes a defense roll, it may reroll one of its defense dice. It's okay. But it's not actually that good.
I mean, I'm mainly just impressed by the fact that you actually did that in one take.
I know, it was pretty good, wasn't it? We spoke about it beforehand, Quinn. There's so many little ifs, buts, and maybes on this card.
Yes, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, the first part is easier to control, right? When an allied character makes a mystic attack, most of these characters are making mystic attacks, right? That's their main form of damage. The thing I don't like is it goes into a character without an activated token. More often than not, from a priority control perspective, and not always, but if I'm playing the attrition game and I want to take characters out, but I want to retain control, I'm targeting those with an activated token, so it doesn't affect then next turn and me potentially losing priority. So I'm just not I'm personally not a fan of this one. I think you're in pretty much agreement, right? That the other
Yeah,
side of
I'm
the
in
card
agreement.
is
Like the other side is definitely the one that you want. Like there can be occasions where if you need to kill like a big character like a Hulk very quickly, then
yeah.
Strange with this and Frosty of Citarac might be the way to go, but it's still a bit iffy.
I think it's the other one, which is Circle of Cosmos, which we'll get onto in a moment. That's kind of your default, isn't it? And
Yeah,
then
definitely.
you swap it. You swap it from there for those niche situations. I think is
100%,
typically
yeah.
how it's played. So Circle of Cosmos, then, when an allied character suffers damage from an enemy effect. After the effect is resolved, you may place it within one of its current position. A character may be placed by this leadership once per turn. So it's a little bit bump-esque, but rather than paying a power, you need to take a damage. So in one sense, it's better than, because there's no power cost to it. In the other side, it's worse than, because you can't just do it when you want. It has to be triggered after you've been attacked. But overall, Quinn, I actually really like this probably a little bit more than Midnight Suns, because it's out of action or out of turn for you as a character, which means you can quite often move yourself then out of range for that second attack or get yourself onto a point, which I actually think is better.
A lot of characters in the game. Like, there are a lot of characters that want to sit within range 2 of you and just double tap you.
Yeah.
And this leadership just says, nope.
Yeah. No. Well, and again, depending on who you are, right? You can either be looking to move away from your opponent or get closer towards them, get within range 2, so you can trigger all of your defensive techniques and everything else like you've got.
I mean, get within range 2 with Strange, do an AoE on the entire team.
Yeah. When exactly do you have to choose your leader?
Oh, when you choose who to put it on, it's at the end of deployment.
Yeah.
It's the same as, like, if you had 2 leaders, like you were taking Sam and Steve together, you pick at the end of deployment. Just one little thing I wanted to mention with regard to sort of this whole design space of leaderships on a card is that actually I really hope that it does get used in a few more places, because there are certain characters that have been released for this game that could lead teams in the future that don't have a leadership for them. Okay. And I think this sort of mechanic could be a really cool way to allow that to happen. So like, I'm thinking like Ms. Marvel with, is it the Champions or the Young Avengers, one of the two?
Yeah, I can't remember which one it is. Yeah, Ironbound like, potentially in
Iron
an
Man
armored.
Potentially. Yeah, I mean, I still am holding on to Bleeding Edge Iron Man.
You really want Bleeding Edge, don't you? Yeah,
yeah, I do. But like, you could also have the goodest boy get a leadership with the Pet Avengers.
You know it. But then, how do you flip this then, Quinn? So, the character that played this card has the leadership ability showing on the face-up sides, whichever they're using. And then during the power phase, they can spend 1 power and flip it. So that's when, as we mentioned there, if you're going to make your big move against a Hulk or a Magni, whoever it's going to be, you have to do it during the power phase. So you may be showing your hand a little bit. You maybe want to make sure you've got priority, because I think, if I was coming up against this Quinn and I was running a Hulk and, he's got 4 cubes on him or whatever it is, and I saw them flip and I had priority, well, I'm going to be going with Hulk first, right? Because you want to make sure he's activated and doing what he's going to do before he goes down. So just one thing to be wary of with that. And as we mentioned, Quinn, it is one of your 10. So effectively, you're only getting 9 slots for the Convocation. I mean, you don't have to take it. I can't ever imagine a situation where you wouldn't.
If you're not going to play with your actual leadership, why not just play a different affiliation?
Yeah, exactly that. So let's run through the other tactics cards then, Quinn. So we've got the Bane of Damballa. We've got the Orb of Agamotto. This is where it gets really hard now, and I have to start pronouncing things.
Oh, I can do it if you want. Just send me the cards and I'll do it. I love pronouncing these things.
The Wands of Watum, Ironbound Books of Cagliostro, Astral Ring, and then rounding it up, we've got Patch Up, Brace for Impact, and Sacrifice.
Okay, now go back and say them all like a wizard.
Bane of Damballa! Which is
how your name in the Goblet of Fire, Harry! He said calmly.
Which, and when we get onto the pros and cons, I think it's on the other one, you'll see. Quinn, pick out some of your, because we've included a lot of the Convocation cards. Not all of the Convocation cards are going to make it into the next roster because whilst they're better than the core box cards, there are other cards from other packs that are better.
Indomitable.
Yeah. So pick out a couple from here then, Quinn, that are your sort of absolute staple. These are the 2 Convocation cards that I'm taking every single time, no matter what roster I'm putting together.
Right, time for the wizard voice. I'm a wizard! The Ironbound books of Shumagora!
So Ironbound books of Shumagora, Quinn. We'll just run through it really, really quickly. We'll read the card off. Obviously, it's Convocation. It's active. A Convocation character may spend 2 power during the power phase to play this card. This round, when an enemy targets an allied character with a physical attack, you may choose to change the attack type to Mystic. When an allied character is KO'd, after the effect is resolved, you may return this card to your available Team Tactics cards. This card may be played again this game. And yeah, it's real good.
Yeah, now read it again like a wizard.
No, I refuse. So Quinn, why is this good? Why does it play so well into the whole Convocation game?
I mean, like, the first sort of thing that jumps out is the fact that Convocation characters, in general, have rather high Mystic defense. I think sort of the lowest in faction ignoring Wong is 4, I want to say.
I think it could be, yeah.
And, like, 1 can go up to 4 if you take the original version of Strange in Convo, which I don't think is the play, I'll be honest. But, so that's the first thing that, like, jumps out at you. And then you look at some other stuff on, like, on the actual cards of Convocation characters, and you start to realise, oh, a lot of these characters actually have, like, tech against Mystic attacks. So you've got the Mystic Armor of Strange, which is, like, it's the same as Captain Marvel's, like, Reverse Pierce.
Yeah.
But it works on Mystic and Energy, but he's got a lower energy defense.
It's how I lost my first game in season 7 was because of that person. Yes, we don't swear on these. Yes. We don't swear on these ones, do we? Yes.
I mean, we've definitely done it before.
But yeah, including 2 or 3. I think 3 wilds he rolled, which is delightful. Which is delightful. I did. I rolled really well. They just rolled even better. Yeah, it's real nice, isn't it? And I just want to pick up one thing there, Quinn. On one of the other characters we included that I think actually has really good synergy, Ultron. Because obviously his reactive ability is when he's defending against Mystic attacks, which, playing the core box, that's not very common, but...
I don't believe it is reactive. I think it's innate.
Sorry, not innate. I meant defensive, sorry, not reactive, but his defensive tech. Obviously, this card works on everyone in your team or in your squad, not just Convocation characters. A Convocation character pays the power, but it works on everybody else in your squad, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, Quinn, on to the kicker of this then. And then when an allied character is KO'd, after the effect is resolved, you may return this card to your available Team Tactics card. This card may be played again this game. We spoke about Magneto having... It's not a similar card in terms of what it does, but those recyclable cards.
Yeah, the cycling cards, like in the form of Magnetic Refraction in Brotherhood or this card. They add
so much value, powerful. Right? Yeah, they add really so much value to it. Yeah, and the fact that it's only 2 power means that you can probably play this every turn, irrespective of who you know.
I mean, there are a lot of Convocation characters that generate multiple power in a round, and there are also like a couple of battery characters in Convocation, like Mordo. Like Mordo typically on his turn will do like a move action and then Master of the Occult to get 2 power. And like he can use that for ferocity, or he can use it to like fund these types of tactics cards.
Yeah, and it's right, isn't it, that in terms of timing and things like this, you can play this during a round. None of your characters are you don't have to have characters KO'd that round. It's just at any point in the game, if one of your characters is KO'd, this card then gets put back into your hand. So it doesn't all have to happen within... I think if it had to happen in the same round, then it's a, you play it.
No.
I don't KO you.
Like you're playing like a defensive card in the hopes of not dying, and then you have like an actual stipulation where you have
you've got to die. Yeah, which is not
also,
great.
As a little teaser for something later on in the video, in the non-budget roster, we have a character that synergizes with this rather interestingly.
I think people may be very surprised.
Yeah, they will.
Quinn, I asked you to pick out 2. What is your second choice then?
I mean, it's the one that's been the bane of my existence.
Is it of a Damballa by any
Bane of Damballa!
So the Bane of Damballa.
Read it like a wizard.
Right, I'll do the first bit. Here we go. So it's Convocation, it's reactive. After an attack made by an allied Convocation character is resolved, if the roll contained 1 or more wild or hit results, it may spend a single power to play the card. The target character and enemy characters within range 2 of it gain the root special condition. There you go. Was that okay?
I'll accept it.
Okay. Yeah, god damn it. It's just
so good.
I'm playing Guardians, obviously, at the moment. And I've been a big fan of Root. Sorry, big fan of Groot. Sorry, not of Root. Root is a superpower that I personally think I've been sleeping on a lot. It turns off so many characters, and just that one extra power causes so many problems for them. And the fact that this is like a little explosion, and on the right setup, you can get 3 or 4 characters in with one, is just really good.
Yeah,
really good.
Absolutely ruined my day with this card at the Elysium Championship. He got, I think it was everyone but Steve and Sam.
Wow.
And I think I had so I think he got like Iron Man, so that's annoying, right?
Yeah.
He got Strange, which I hated, and then he also got, I think the worst one was Captain Marvel. Because basically, for the rest of the game, it just meant that she never went into binary.
She can't go binary. Yeah,
no, I mean, it was just every turn I had to do the throw instead.
Yeah, and obviously you're Avengers, so you could argue that
I mean, yeah,
it
negates it's making me play the game like a normal person. Yeah. I don't want to do that. But also, he had Loki standing off at the sideline, and I'm just like, I hate you so much.
Yeah, it can be a real pain, can't it? So I think they're two really good picks. Guys, I want to just talk about Sacrifice really quickly. Just make sure, I did a video on it a little while ago. Go watch that after you've watched this one, obviously. Just be aware of the rules around Sacrifice if you're taking the card, because there are some stipulations around it in terms of what you can and indeed can't do with it.
Yeah, turns out Voodoo isn't very good with it. We'll leave you with that.
Voodoo's not very good with it, no. Quinn, let's go on to the Crisis selection then. And once again, as we tend to be with these budget rosters, we are limited. So we are taking all of the extracts from the core box. So Struggle for the Cube, Skrulls Infiltrate, and Spider Infected. We then got Infinity Formula and Riot Sparks, but we're also including Intrusions Open Across City as Seals Collapse, which I think comes in... I always think it's Doctor Strange's box, but it's not, is it? It's actually in Mordo's box. I think
Mordo and the Ancient
Mordo
one.
Yep. An Ancient one, isn't it? So, talking about Crisis, Quinn, obviously we're flexible in terms of leaders, and we'll talk more about leaders when we do the sort of no limit roster. But in terms of Crisis selection, are we worried about threat level and are we worried about maps? Are there any ones that particularly catch us out or that we want to try and avoid?
I don't think there's anything you necessarily want to avoid with Convocation. I think there are ones that you find preferable. Okay. And the ones that I think you find preferable are like E maps, so like Demons and Gamma, right? Because the Bane of Damballa, Yeah, you can like hit Bane off on someone and just spread it to way more people. Mordo's a lot more useful on them because he can spread those incinerates around easier.
That coupled with the root and everything else he does is
Yeah,
absolutely crazy, isn't it?
like, it's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, like those are sort of the maps that I think you want to go for. Extracts are a very, very interesting thing with Convocation because of the Circle of the Cosmos side of the leadership. They are actually very good at just taking your opponent's extracts turn one and going, "You fight me, I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
I'm going to bunny hop away every time you hit me. See ya."
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And it's once per turn, isn't it, that leadership? So, you can't double tap a character and it work, but they at least get to do it once.
Yeah, and a lot of the time, if it's a range 2 attacker, like they're going to have to walk into range to attack you anyway.
Yes.
Turn 1 at least.
Yeah. So, Quinn, let's have a look then at the playstyle focus. So, this is really just to give you an idea of at least how we think these rosters should be played. It uses the sort of 3 pillars of MCP, if you like. There's a video, go check it out after you've watched this one, obviously, of attrition, support, and control. And Quinn, these guys are fairly even in terms of what they're doing. So we scored them, a 6 for attrition, 4 for support, and then 5 for control. So definitely attrition focused, but they still do a lot of control and still do still have a lot of support, don't they? So they're a fairly balanced affiliation and a fairly balanced roster, but on a dime they can flip and do some heavy attrition, can't they?
Yeah, I think like that's probably one of the biggest strengths of Convocation as an affiliation is that ability to just go, "Oh, this isn't working. I'm gonna just full like hard pivot into this now because I can."
Yeah, it's and it is that pivoting which I really like, and it's both from a squad selection standpoint and even at a roster selection standpoint, right?
Yeah.
If you know what you're coming up against, but definitely at a squad selection point, but even mid game, a lot of these characters have different things they can spend power on, and all of a sudden you can start taking some bleed damage on Strange by Mordo boosting his dice and all sorts of things like that, or just go completely defensive and keep Brother Daniel on Voodoo, or send him out there to just completely nullify one of your characters, but nullify one of your opponent's characters, making him more susceptible, but absolutely controlling the game from a extract and even from a secure perspective. So
I mean, like even potentially if you're against like a mainly physical attack team, which is the majority of teams in the game, bar like Guardians and Convocation, really, and Defenders, they exist.
Yes. Oh, we always forget about them, don't we?
Yeah, I wonder why. But like against those teams, like even if you are doing that whole voodoo play of I'm going to put Brother Daniel on you, and even if you daze me, Daniel's going to stay on you because that rules interaction is a little bit busted. Let's be honest.
It really is.
You can have Ironbound books up and just go, I'm still rolling for defense against your physical attacks because I'm voodoo.
Yeah, it's
pretty damn good.
Really good. And then we've spoke, haven't we, about how Voodoo's one of the best 4-threat characters in the game. I think it's hard now to say that one character is the best in a certain threat level because he's real good. But it's always situational, but he's in affiliation. Look at how many people take Voodoo as a 4-threat splash, and you get him in affiliation, and he can be your leader if you want, right? And we'll talk about leaders in the next half of the video, but super strong, super flexible in terms of how they play. So with that, Quinn, let's have a quick look at the pros and cons, starting with the pros. As you already mentioned, very strong extract play. The number, the amount of out of turn, out of activation movements that you can make, the fact that Brother Daniel just makes everyone drop their shit, that's the one we're allowed in the video, is super strong. Turning the physical attacks into Mystic should not be sat on if you're looking at playing Convocation. It's one of the biggest strengths, I think, Quinn, of the game, and as you say, forces your opponent to go down the route of then taking other characters. And what you often find, Quinn, is that big attacks that have then big follow-up attacks, whether it's rapid fire, whether it's Corvus Glaive with his flurry, whether it's Medusa with her braid bash, all of those big attacks with all of those triggers, for the most part, are physical attacks.
I mean, even with the most mystic-centric characters, their big spender is actually
actually a physical attack.
Jean Grey, Cassandra Nova, both of their big attacks are physical. There's a lot of them out there that are just physical randomly.
Yeah.
Stopping a Synthesoid Avenger, for example, that can be huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, do not sit on that. And absolutely, it's one of those S tier cards for Convocation, isn't it? It's in your squad every single time for the most part. As I say, odd exceptions, maybe if you're coming up against a Guardians list with Ghost Rider, maybe there's less value in it, but yeah, for the most part, it's real good. And then, Quinn, one part that we often don't talk about a lot is as well, but very strong in affiliation characters.
Yes.
We've picked 4 characters there, all of which could be the leader, just because of the rules, but actually all of which you could potentially use as your leader. Obviously, Strange and Voodoo are probably the strongest of the two.
I would say Strange and Mordo, actually. Voodoo, I typically don't run as leader, and I don't see run as a leader generally, just because it allows your opponent to focus on him even more.
I suppose he's already got a bit of a target.
He's already a big target because he's an exceptionally powerful model.
Yeah.
And then when you actually add on the fact that he's the thing that allows you to have your leadership, it just incentivizes killing him even more. Whereas if you put it on someone else, Mordo is a great one because no one actually cares about Mordo. He doesn't actually really do anything. He just sort of stands at the back, maybe has an objective on him. And occasionally does a Frosty and Sidorak. But if you put that leadership on him, then you're forcing your opponent to make choices of whether they deal with those
all the way to the back point as well.
Yeah, they have to go all the way back there, and also it means that they're ignoring your frontline characters, like your Voodoos, like your Strangers, like your Ancient Ones, right?
Yeah, letting them just do what they do, which is usually annihilate things that are in front of them. It's not all roses and glory for Convocation. There are definitely some cons. And the first one, Quinn, I want to talk about is, I'm going to say these are the most complex affiliation in the game to play right now. There's a lot of moving parts. There's lots of things you've got to be aware of. I think the skill level needed for Convocation is probably higher than any other affiliation out there at the moment.
They're really up there, yeah.
But if you get it right, it can be really, really good. I think you just need to put more work in, get more reps in with them before taking them to a big event or something like that. They're not really something you can pick up and learn as you go playing a game. Which I think you can do for the most part with a lot of other affiliations. But yeah, these guys definitely have a very, very high level of skill needed to be able to access them fully.
There are a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. They have an affiliated 2-threat, but it's not in this roster. So no access to it in this roster. So we'll just leave that there for the moment. So yeah, they've got one, but it's not part of this, which is a little bit of a con. It does make it harder when putting together your squad, not having that affiliated 2-threat. But
you can potentially have a 3-threat leader.
Exactly. I was just about to say, but with the flexibility of the leadership, it does make it a lot easier. And Quinn, actually, one thing we didn't touch upon when we spoke about the crisis cards, but I do want to talk about now even, don't like pay to flips. They really don't like the pay to flips. And just to clarify, what do we mean by pay to flips? These are the mutant madmen. What's the word? Is it Deadly Meteors, Quinn, from the core box? Which is the reason why we took Deadly Meteors out for intrusions. But pay to flips are those ones where you move within 1 or 2 if you're Toad. You spend a power to interact, and then typically you roll some dice. Now, the 3 that are based on rolling dice are either physical or energy. And as Quinn said, these guys are stacked on the Mystic defense, which means that they have less on the physical and the energy. I think on average it's like 2 physical, 3 energy. And any of the extra buffers that you get, like, Brother Daniel, for example, on Dr. Voodoo doesn't get to roll 4 physical and 4 energy when he's interacting. That's just when he's defending. So, yeah, really, really important. And I would say that's the one, Quinn, that you want to try and avoid, isn't it?
Definitely.
Is
and,
flips.
Thankfully, paid flips aren't very popular at the moment. They might become more popular, especially if, like, Asgard gets some much-needed love, like, because they're generating more power around. They can interact with them freely, effectively. And like, there has been rumblings regarding like pay to flip X-Men because of First Class being able to like interact for free. Turn 1 can be pretty cool.
It can
like
be, yeah,
generally,
it can be really
generally
nice.
speaking, like the big players at the moment, like your Criminal Syndicate, your Avengers, your Brotherhood, they don't really want to do pay to flips just because they're a bit of a nuisance.
Quinn, let's have a look then at the total cost and the packs that we've used. So, as I mentioned, CP67, CP64, CP65, and of course CP1, the core box, coming in at a total of $229.80. So, actually, at the higher end of our core box, of our budget rosters, but that's because of the Voodoo and Hood pack, because obviously Hood comes with 2 minis, so he's $10 more expensive than a sort of standard $39.95 pack. But don't be disheartened, guys. These are just the MSRPs that Atomic Mass Games put on their website. Most local gaming stores are going to give you 10, 15, 20, sometimes 25% discount. And if you are in the UK, why not check out Elysium War Games? They're a fantastic sponsor of the channel. Ellis has helped me out with lots of giveaways in the past. They run some really, really good events as well. Recent store champion, actually. Get that one in here while I can, because I haven't done a video since. At least not with Quinn. Do you see the little look on his face then? Ooh. But yeah, go check them out. There'll be a link down in the description below. And Quinn, that takes us then to the final 4 parts, the sort of roundup of the roster itself. So starting with the cost, as I mentioned, usually all these budget rosters get $1 out of 5. I think because these guys have got a more expensive pack, we have to put them that little bit higher up. So I am going to be ranking these guys at $1.50 out of 5, just because that 1 pack is that little bit more expensive. Difficulty. And this is where these guys are really not shining. So for difficulty, I've had to give them 4 skulls out of 5. There's, as we mentioned, lots of moving parts, really high skill level needed, and lots of reps needed to get these guys to where you want to be with them. So yeah, not the easiest one to play. However, on the adaptability side, yes, we don't have a 2-threat in affiliation, Quinn, but because of the fact that we can just pick whoever our leader is, so we can, go up and down in terms of how wide or how tall we want to be, we've actually scored them 3.5 wilds out of 5. So really interesting for an affiliation that doesn't have any 2 threats in the roster. That's really, really high scoring from them. So overall roster score, then, when we take everything into consideration, they are scoring 6.7 out of possible 10, and that's all sorts of magic in the background that we work on, which is really, really good. Puts them towards the top end of the budget rosters, but as you see, they've got a lot of room for improvement when we go into the other.
And also, like regarding the magic bit of it, seems rather fitting considering this is the Convocation episode.
It does, absolutely. So, Quinn, on to the second roster then, and this is the one where we get to spend all of the money, and really, and I suppose a lot of them, Quinn, tend to be tweaks, don't they? We carry over a lot of what we do in the budget, but we just tweak things. We get access
Yeah,
to
we sort of hone the initial sculpture.
yeah, we get better tactics cards. We get access to certain characters and that sort of thing. So, yeah, let's go through and take a look. Then let's start with the characters. So we're carrying through all of the characters that we took in the previous roster that are affiliated, at least. So Doctor Strange, Sorcerer Supreme, Ancient One, Baron Mordo, and Doctor Voodoo. We do, however, have a fifth member of the team coming in, which is really needed, I think. Another affiliated 3-threat is nice in Magic. We've then got Baron Zemo. We've then got Lizard, and we'll talk about how good Lizard is in here as well. Ebony Maw, which may surprise some people, and Toad. And then lastly...
Then there's someone very interesting, isn't there?
We've got Elektra with her grunts. So Quinn...
It's only fitting that Electrich would take Elektra.
Electrich, yes, that's the one, isn't it? So Quinn, let's have a little conversation about a certain Ebony Maw. Why is he in here? Because...
Brotherhood.
Okay, just Brotherhood.
Yeah, Brotherhood. There you go.
He's real good against Brotherhood, isn't he?
He's real good because, I mean, one, he can ignore collision damage for 2 power. And 2, he can throw size 4 terrain long, which means if, Brotherhood is a real tough matchup for Convocation because you can only have 1 copy of Brace for Impact.
Yeah.
And most of your characters have rather poor physical defense, which is typically the most important defense in the game because it's important for dodging as well, right? So Ebony Maw allows you to pick up size 4 terrain and throw it into size 3 terrain, for example. It's a long throw, and I think it's range 3 to pick up from as well. Which means that basically you can get rid of Brotherhood's ammunition before they get to use it.
Yeah, and I've had a few people say to me, "Oh, you shouldn't do that because you're actually giving them more power than what they usually had." It's like, I get it, right? I get it because you're double generating power for them because they can generate power in your turn as well as their own turn. But if it's the choice of that or having a size 4 building yeeted into Dr. Voodoo's face or Baron Mordo's face or Magic's face, I think I know which I'd prefer.
Yeah, I mean, let's say you are destroying a size 4 and a size 3. That's representing a grand total of 9 damage to your team, potentially.
Yeah.
I mean, would you rather just... would you rather have, a 3 power med pack that heals 9 damage off your characters and gives your opponent, a power on every one of their characters? Or would you rather take 9 damage to the face?
and people go, it won't actually be 9 damage, will it? Because of this.
No, it won't be 9 damage.
It'll be about 6. It'll be 6 or 7
actually.
Yeah, it'll be 6 or 7 on average. So, yeah, and yeah, he's pretty good. He's pretty good. One of the things around him is that he has high mystic defense, as we've already mentioned. With the tactics card, it plays into that side of it as well, which because even if your opponent spends the power, it doesn't matter, does it? It's just countered as a mystic defense, a mystic attack anyway. Yeah, really, really nice. Lizard, because we've seen Lizard. He's kind of. I remember when Lizard was first released, and he was kind of pushed to the side a little bit because. He didn't, his attacks are subpar. Let's call it how it is. But over time, he's kind of gone up in value outside of affiliation a hell of a lot, to the point now where, he's up there in terms of, at least from what I see, one of the most splashed 3-threat characters in the game.
Yeah, and the reasoning for that is the fact that he's really fast and really tanky.
He is a beast, isn't he? And I mean,
he's
literally
lizard,
and figuratively a beast. But the boy can take a punch, absolutely take a punch. And yeah, I mean, often you'll just walk up, won't you? Double move him. I think we went through this in the Spider Foes video, right? Walk him up twice, steal your opponent's, either back point or mid point or whatever it is, and. Yeah, let them take 3 characters over to try and take him down. And whilst ever they're doing that, Strange and Ancient One and Mordo are just cleaning up and taking out everybody else. So
Yeah,
it can
and
cause
like,
a real
so
distraction.
we should probably fully delve into this like extract strategy, right? Which is you play something on an F map, so either cubes or spider infected, preferably spider infected. And what you do is you have lizard on one flank, voodoo on the other. If your opponent goes and picks up one of their like home extracts, you go with whichever one is opposite the one they didn't pick up, double move and pick it up. And voodoo and lizard are both incredibly tanky. And what that allows you to do is then, with the Circle of the Cosmos, every time they're attacking the character that like went into their deployment and took the thing, they hop back a little bit.
Move back.
And then they hop back again. And they hop back again. And like whilst that's happening, like typically, if you have priority with Convocation on that crisis, you are getting 4 of the 5 extracts. And that is a huge VP difference.
Oh, it's massive. It's absolutely massive, isn't it? And then, you can even add into there, Quinn, can't you? Scalpel of Strange as well. So during Strange's turn, then you can get hold of Lizard and just, move him. I think it's range 3, is it? You get to move on Scalpel of Strange.
I mean, you'll need a way to find an extra power on Strange.
You will do. Yeah, you will do.
But, I mean, like, even in the latter turns where you just sort of, you get priority again and you just sort of go, I'm going to go with Strange. Lizard's back there. I'm going to stab you now.
Yeah.
It can be pretty brutal.
Strange isn't too worried about power generation, is he? A range 3, 5 strength mystic attack with a pierce is pretty good. You're gonna be generating a bit of power there, I think.
Chosen of the Vishanti giving him 3 power a turn as well. It's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And then you've got Mystic Armor of Strange on top of it, piercing things and giving you even more power.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, he's not too concerned about power generation. Quim, let's address the Elektra-sized elephant in the room. We had to address
the elephant is no longer clear.
Yeah, we had to address the clear-sized elephant. Now we're addressing the Elektra-sized elephant because everyone knows we have shit all over Elektra as a character.
What? Electrich doesn't like Elektra? What?
And I still stand by that in most situations, Elektra is not good. Why is she here?
I will freely say that Colossus is a worse 4 threat.
Okay.
I'm feeling generous today.
There we go. So, why Elektra, Quinn? Why is she in there?
Grunts, really. Like, the hand ninjas, for those of you that don't know, the hand ninjas have an ability where if they pick up an extract, they can effectively, for an action, kill themselves to give it to someone else. And, that's all fine and good, right? Moving an extract onto, a more survivable character, great. The reason it's actually really interesting is when you consider the Ironbound books of Shumagorath. Because they KO themselves. Which means that you get your stupid card back that lets all of the enemy physical attacks become mystic.
Yeah. And there's no stipulation on that card that says KO'd by an enemy effect, is there?
No. They can kill themselves, or they can be killed in the crossfire of anything else because they've only got 2 health.
Yeah,
I mean, hell, you can pick up terrain and throw it into them with your own characters.
If you really want to, yeah. And this is the thing: is that there's so many ways of killing them that doesn't because if you've got that card, me as the opponent is then going to go, well, I'm not even going to bother attacking the grunts because it's just going to trigger your card for you. You don't even have to rely on that. You can murder them themselves. Like, yeah, it's real good synergy. So we know why. Obviously, grunts are good in Convocation for that purpose. We know why hand ninjas over, say, shield agents, because there is that way of killing them themselves or KOing themselves. Sorry. Why Elektra and not Daredevil or Shadowlands Daredevil?
Elektra has a mystic builder. It's not a builder. Basic attack. There we go.
She does.
Which is,
she does.
Pretty nice.
Yeah, and she's not going to do amazing things. If you do get enough power on her, then yeah, she might be able to pull off her impale. But we're really, it's really that grunt play, isn't it?
It
Over.
is the grunt play. I mean, also with the grunts, like you can go grab like both wide hammers if you have prio, for example, because the grunts go, they double move, pick up a hammer. Elektra goes, double moves, picks up the hammer, and it's just another potential way to get an extracted advantage.
Yeah. I also think Shadowlands Daredevil, you're losing that radar sense element as well, aren't you? Because you don't have to turn physical attacks into Mystic, but you are losing. He's kind of the opposite to all of the other. He's high on the defense for physical, and he's got energy and physical tech as well. That's innate. So you're kind of losing out on that part of it.
Yeah,
I
he
think
doesn't
so.
synergize very well with the card.
I will say, Quinn, I don't mind the idea of a Nick Fury in there. If you do, if you did want to swap out Elektra, we've obviously gone with Elektra for this one. Spoiler alert: I can't imagine us including her in any other roster. But for these purposes, but if you were to turn around and say, well, actually, I'm going to put a Nick Fury in because he gives me a little bit more, I wouldn't hate it. So I think it is probably interchangeable if you did want to take the shield grunts instead. But yeah, Elektra probably works best for that play. So contrary to popular belief, we give every character an equal chance here on the Ultimate Guide show, and it's an equal opportunities world, isn't it, Quinn? Just because you're shit in one place doesn't mean that you don't get a chance to shine in others. So
Doesn't mean
yeah.
you don't get a chance to be shit in another place.
Quinn, let's go through the tactics cards because a lot of them, are the same. There's a couple in there that we have swapped out, and I do want to talk a little bit about. But we've got the Bane of Damballa, the Bane of Damballa, even.
Once again, wizard voice.
Bane of Damballa, Orb of Agamotto. Bar, you can't say the bar with no doors in a voice like that. It doesn't work. Anyway,
with no doors.
The Wands of Watum, Ironbound books, Astral Ring. Then we start to change things up a little bit, Quinn, because we've got Eyes on the Prize, a card I don't think we have seen in any other roster that we've put together. So yeah, just curious. Why is it in there? What's it doing? But we'll come back to it. We then got Medpack, it's a better version of Patch Up, Brace for Impact, and then obviously Indomitable. We talked about how susceptible these guys are to throws and things and collision damage. Doubling up on Brace for Impact is not a bad thing in any way, shape, or form. But Quinn, Eyes on the Prize. Quick look at what the card does. So at the start of an allied character's activation, you can spend a power. During this activation, basically you can interact at range 2 rather than the normal 1. So it's basically giving you Toad's ability for a round. But why is it in there? Is there a particular play why this has gone in there?
There is. So, in addition to the whole Elektra Grunts thing, where you can go get the wide hammers, if you're not running Elektra for some reason on hammers, you can take this alongside Sorcerer Supreme Strange, who starts with 3 power. You pay 1 power for the card at the start of his go. He then picks up your home hammer and moves twice, and then also picks up one of the wide hammers, which means you now have 2 hammers on probably your most defensively capable character in your roster.
Yeah.
And then also next turn he activates and goes, okay, I walk into the middle. I'm going to baleful bolts of Balthak you with 7 dice. So I roll my 7 dice. Oh look, I got 2 crits. So I roll my 2 crits in. Oh, this roll isn't good enough. I'm going to re-roll all 9 of these dice and murder you.
Yeah, I mean, we just spoke about how Baleful Bolts of Balthak. His build is really good, right? Range 3, Mystic, with a Pierce, 5 Strength. Making that 7 is just stupid. Like, at that point, it's just ridiculous. And even then, even the other sides of it then, having an 8 dice Daggers of Datharoth, where you get to choose what type of attack it is, so you just pick your opponent's lowest, is super, super good. So yeah, I really like that play. I think it's really, really nice. So Quinn, on to the crisis cards. So with the extracts, we've got Struggle for the Cube, Fear Grips, and Spire Infected. So actually keeping 2 of those core box crisis cards, but it's that F map that these guys absolutely love, don't they? Being able to double move up with a medium move. Do you have to be on a medium base, Quinn, to make that? I don't think a small
medium
base,
medium move is it's either medium base, medium move, or short base or small base, long move is the way that you get there.
Yeah, which, as we just mentioned, you've got 2 different players there from either side. Doctor Strange on one, Lizard with the other.
His name's Dr. Voodoo, but sure.
Sorry, Dr. Voodoo on one, and then you just said about
No, Strangers for Hammers. Strangers for Hammers.
Dr. Voodoo even. Of the 2, Quinn, so deployment, you put 1 on each side, probably.
Yeah.
Who you've got priority? Who do you go with first? Who's the first one to act?
If we're ignoring factors like who they're opposite, right? If they're opposite characters of a similar level of combat ability, I'd probably go with Lizard first. Mainly because 1, he's a cheaper threat than Voodoo is, so he's less of an investment. And 2, I think people will care less about killing Lizard than they will about Voodoo.
Yeah.
If you put Voodoo in there, Lizard has the thick hide, right? So he reduces by 1, which means he's got that extra little layer of safety that Voodoo doesn't. Because Voodoo is entirely dice as to whether he survives or not. And if you randomly get spiked with Voodoo, you're going to have a bad time. Yes,
yeah, absolutely. And, Lizard has also got that healing factor as well. So if he does, and we spoke about this before, but Lizard, you're less incentivized to actually make attacks with him because he's not going to do very well with it. So actually you don't mind double moving and just getting him the hell out of dodge, holding whatever he's holding, and then healing 1. So yeah, I do think obviously as you mentioned, Quinn, it's always situational, right? Who are you being paired off against? Who from your opponent is going on the flanks? But yeah, I think for the most part, Lizard is the better option. On to the secures then. Intrusions we've kept. We've then got Gamma Wave and we've got Demons, both E-maps. Again, no surprise there. We've already spoke about how they do prefer them. So Quinn, onto the playstyle focus, and we've really changed the shape of this one because whilst we've got no worse at support, control and attrition just kind of take over in this one. So the support element is still there. It's still as good as it was previously, but we've doubled, if not tripled down on that attrition and
it's
control
much
side
less
of it.
of a focus, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you could argue really either way. Are they more control? Are they more attrition? We actually had them split almost equally, as you can see from the graph. So really, really good on both fronts. And again, not even during squad selection, but in the middle of a game, can just turn on a dime and switch from one through to the other. So very, very adaptable, as you'll see when we score them on adaptability as well, Quinn. No affiliation, no roster is perfect, but let's have a look at the pros and cons. So I'm going to say, Quinn, the biggest pro for this affiliation, and it actually rings true in the budget roster as well, is you get to talk like a wizard at every given opportunity. So you're in the middle of the gaming hall and you just announce that you are playing the Wands of Watum at your loudest voice possible. Everybody looks round. All the 40k players are wondering what's happening. The MTG players are concerned because somebody's talking above a whisper, and you get to be a wizard for the afternoon, which is always cool.
And if you're really lucky, Ian McKellen will show up and
This is
shake
true.
your hand.
Yeah, don't tempt him.
Roll better, you fool.
Roll better, fools. Maybe that should be the next T-shirt.
That's my line as a wizard.
Even better extract play. We don't like to double down on these pros, Quinn, because we put that they had a really good extract play in the first one, but with the addition of Lizard,
and Eyes on the Prize, right?
And Eyes on the Prize, yeah, and Eyes on the Prize,
and Elektra.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, and really, we're talking about, you know, we should just be Grunts. Why? We actually should just put Grunts in there rather than Elektra.
Threat Grunts, basically.
But yeah, they absolutely are. And one thing that we touched upon as well, Quinn, is they're really well suited to either really fast or really slow scoring crisis, and you don't often see that with an affiliation. They tend to lean one way or the other.
Yeah, like maybe you'll see it in an affiliation, but not in the same roster for an affiliation.
Yeah. So you know, you could argue, couldn't you, that like, you could a Sam Spam versus a cap list, you know, play to different strengths and things, or a Hulkbuster list, or you know,
exist.
Oh yeah, he's the third leader, isn't he? No, but like, or a Magneto versus Mystique, for example. Obviously, Mystique fast scoring, Magneto wants to be slower scoring because you tend to
grinding
be
it out,
higher.
getting the kills.
But they don't care. Like, they really don't care. I actually think they also don't care. I mean, obviously during squad selection, that's where you make that switch up. But yeah, they so adaptable. Can just adapt to any scenario that they're putting, really. As always, though, there are some cons. So something that we talk, Quinn, about getting reps in, don't we? About that's a really, really important part of playing any affiliation. If you're going to take an affiliation to a meaningful event, right? And what do I mean by a meaningful event? Well, for me, that's something where it's competitive. There's an entry fee. You know, it's not, you know, turn up and play on a Friday night and pay £3.50 for the table with your mates. It's, you know, where there's a prize pool. It's costing you $10, $15, $20 to actually enter that. And there's something meaningful at the end of it. You need to get your reps in with an affiliation. And what I'm going to say, Quinn, is that it actually extends out to the pronunciation of words when talking like a wizard as well. You don't want to be that idiot that turns up and tries to pronounce the Dane of Damballa incorrectly because you're like a right fool. So you do need to get your reps in. Stand in your mirror. I recommend, Quinn, 15 minutes every morning. Right, get up 15 minutes earlier.
Yep.
In front of the mirror. Take your cards in and present them. I
mean, like, if it helps, like, maybe like get like a fake beard off of Amazon or something, put that on, get yourself in that mind space.
I wouldn't go straight in with the wizard voice, Quinn. I'd actually get the pronunciation right first. Maybe the first week or so, first 7 days, nail the pronunciations, and then lead into
and maybe like instead of going like full wizard voice right off the bat, you actually like gradually just make your voice sound older and older.
Yeah, I like it. So, Quinn, we touched on it earlier, but we're still susceptible to throws. Yes, we've done something, you know, we've got Ebony Moore in there, we've got Brace for Impact, we've got Indomitable, so we've negated it somewhat, but at the end of the day, Magneto's still going to be throwing shit at you. You know, Groot's still going to be able to throw you at the back end of an I Am Groot. Thanos is, you know, so many characters with builders with throws on the back end on a wild.
You're going to have your day ruined by Miles Morales.
Yeah, absolutely. So just
especially if it's being played
by
by Aaron fucking Conley. Because I swear I have never seen him not roll a wild on that webline kick.
It's those fake dice he's got. And then lastly, Quinn, we spoke about how good Ironbound Books is, but it needs to be played. So if turn 1 you play it, unless you've got Grunts, you ain't getting it back.
I mean, first of all, if you're playing Ironbound Books turn 1, have a word with yourself.
This is true. So, yeah, you need to think about it. It's that turn 1, you're going to be susceptible some attacks, turn 2 potentially as well if you're not playing it turn 2. So just working out when is best to play it. And as I said, Elektra and the Grunts do help with that, but be aware that you are very squishy and very susceptible to non-bucks and also energy attacks as well. These guys, I think they have average energy defense, Quinn. I'm not, they're not above, really above or below average.
They're a little bit above, I think, because you've got people like Mordo, who has an extra 1, Voodoo with his brother has an extra 1, and then Strange has defensive tech against it.
He does, yeah, he does. So his Mystic Armor is energy or Mystic, isn't it? So, the one attack that can go into him, you can negate and turn into Mystic anyway. So yeah, it's pretty good. Quinn, let's have a look at the overall cost of what we got here. So we are coming in, and I'm not going to go through all of the packs. You can see them listed there. We're coming in at a grand total of $609.35. Not the cheapest, but most definitely not the most expensive. But again, there are some characters, there are some cards in here that you could take out if you didn't want to use them. Is Ebony Maw absolutely essential to any plans that we've got? No. He helps, but
he's good in that singular Brotherhood matchup, is what I'd say. Like, there might be other situations where you want to play him, but he's not crucial.
Yeah, and really outside of, I would say, Quinn, outside of probably Lizard, in terms of their extra characters, he's the one that I would say, look, if you're going into a roster where you want to buy more packs than just the 3, he would be my first go-to pack. Transitioning from the roster we had, the budget, into this, I think Lizard would be my next buy. Maybe even before Magic, in terms of other character I'd want to bring.
What, you mean your next buy isn't immediately Elektra?
No, it's not. But again, guys, it's, these characters get used across the board. Don't just see it as, well, every roster I put together is going to cost me, $600+. That's not the case. These characters can be used across the board. There's some really good splashable characters in here as well, Quinn, isn't there? Toad is seen in so many places. Lizard is seen everywhere. If you're buying Elektra, you get Shadowlands Daredevil to actually play outside of this roster. Voodoo just absolutely everywhere at the moment.
All over the place,
so you're getting huge amount of value from the game, or from these characters and cards that they're bringing as well. So Quinn, it takes us into the last parts of the roster as we always do. So in the cost, I'm giving these guys, Quinn, just a 2.5, 3. Let's go 2.5. 2.5 out of 5. It's by no means the most expensive roster that we've had.
I think a big help in that regard is the fact that we're actually using something else out of the Indomitable box, unlike every other roster.
Yes, we're actually taking a character and the Indomitable card as well, because that's usually just a $40 drop on a single card, isn't it? So having Magic in there is quite nice. Difficulty. I actually don't think, Quinn, they're any more difficult to play. I want to say, are they? No, I think they're about the same. There's nothing more we're adding in. So I think we stay with that 4 out of 5 for difficulty.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think they're more difficult. I think you're just sort of building upon sort of the habits you've made from the initial budget roster. You've got hammers in there with Iron the Prize now. And that's great, but it's very similar to the stuff you will have been doing previously with that budget roster. So it's not really anything. It's new, but it's not new, right? It's just different.
It's not adding anything extra, is it? It's not a huge, a whole bunch of other mechanics that need to be learned. And then adaptability, Quinn, we scored them really high in the last roster. I think for the budget roster, 7. 3.5. Guess what? We do it out of 10, then divide it by 2. But they're even more adaptable now. We've got some characters in there to deal with lots of different situations. So Quinn, 4.5 wilds out of 5 for me on the adaptability side, which is crazy when we do not have an affiliated 2-threat character in our roster.
Yeah.
And yes,
it just really goes to show that they are super good at pivoting.
yeah, oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's kind of their shtick, really, isn't it? Is that they can adapt to any situation. So Quinn, it takes us then into the final score for the roster, and would you believe it? It's 8.1. Which puts them on par with Avengers, puts them on par with Air Force. I think there's one other in there as well that are 8.1. And at first, Quinn, I was a bit like, oh, it's everything's coming out at 8.1. That's really, really bad. Surely it should be a lot more different. But actually,
Yeah, and then I turned around and went, that just means the game's balanced.
it goes to show that it's a balanced game.
If we ignore Black Order's existence, it's a very balanced game.
Yeah, I mean, well, you kind of have to, don't you? Because yeah, they just buck the trend. I think Brotherhood is another one as well that was up there. But yeah, 8.1, so puts them in joint 4th or 5th place. I think it is. I can't remember what that is now. But super solid roster. What I will say, Quinn, is I would not recommend anybody to play Convocation as their first affiliation in this game. I probably wouldn't recommend it being the second thing you play in this game. I think I would learn other affiliations first. If you really wanted to, you could. But there's, as you mentioned, there's so many moving parts in this affiliation that it does, they are a difficult roster to play. I don't know your thoughts on that. I mean, whether or not you'd recommend it for anybody's first roster.
I mean, it very much depends on you as a person, right? Because you could be a veteran wargamer that's been doing this for longer than I've been alive. Most people watching this have been.
This is true.
But in effect, just if you really like wizards, go for it, right? Practice in front of the mirror, do your wizard voice. Maybe one day you'll also get to play defenders and have wizards there as well when they finally get tactics cards. But
fingers crossed,
it's a long way off.
Fingers crossed, yeah. But I'm really enjoying Convocation. I've played a couple of games with them. I've played a couple of games against them. They've definitely gone up in my estimation. But I do think that initial thing with them was that people just didn't know what to do with them. There were so many tactics cards to choose from. Like, they all look goodish on paper, and it's not really until you start playing with them and putting in the reps you realise actually that's not quite good, or actually that's really good, even though at first glance it doesn't look like there's many applications for it. So
Dane of Bimble Bumble is a great card.
Dane of Bimble Bumble, yes, it really is, and that's probably, for me, it is probably the standout card for them, isn't it? Obviously outside of outside of
do it in the voice. Do it in the voice.
The bar with no doors, which you have to take. It's that's probably the next one. But guys, there we go. That is our ultimate guide to Convocation. But I will say, guys, whereas me and Quinn have put in a lot of reps with other affiliations, this is one that we definitely haven't put as many in. Quinn, I know you've been sort of toying with them. You're even considering playing them in the big event this weekend, weren't you? I've
considered playing basically every affiliation in the game for that event.
This is true. You've sort of cycled through everything. But let us know down in the comment section below if you guys have some hints, tips, tricks for other players out there. Let us know down in the comment section below, because we're always eager to learn as well. So guys, if you've liked this video in any way, shape or form, please leave a like. It really, really does help. I also want to mention our this is normally the bit where I go and support us on Patreon, because why not? I'm not going to mention that today, because what I want to talk about just really briefly is the charity event that we are running on the 23rd of April. As you guys know, last year I did a 28-hour live stream. I'm not quite yet over that to be able to do it
like
again.
I was there for like 20 of those hours.
I think you were. I think you did have like a 4 hour stints where you weren't there. I think at one point you were adding up dice for me because I couldn't work it out.
I do that in normal games for you anyway.
That is true. Yeah. But we're running a charity event. It's going to be a quiz. It's going to be over on my Twitch channel. Now, I'm not too bothered. I'm not going to ask you to go and subscribe to my Twitch channel or anything like that. I don't really care about it. The only reason I'm using Twitch is because it has a really good overlay. I showed Quinn it earlier in the week, and it's really, really good for quizzing. It's all going to be about MCP. We've got some great guests that are going to be on the show who are asking questions as well. We've got some fantastic prizes to give away. Some that money can buy, some that money can't buy as well. So we've got a few content creators out there who have very kindly offered their time and services and expertise to give you some fantastic prizes. It's all in aid of Candlelighters Charity. There'll be a link down in the description below to the events page on Facebook. You can find it on the Discord server as well. I'll also leave a link to the Just Giving page. And if you can donate, even a single pound, dollar, yen, euro, whatever your local currency is, really, really does make a difference. It's a fantastic charity. It's a children's cancer charity, really close to my heart. So, if you can, whatever you can afford, don't buy Elektra this month, right? Buy it next month instead, and or get a good discount and contribute the difference.
I'm cycling through my mind of like all of the currencies to find like the best one. And I'm
Ugandan dollars are also accepted.
I mean,
there we go.
I like ducats. Ducats are fun.
Ducats are good.
They're fun to say. Or like doubloons.
Doubloons
or galleons.
It makes you feel like a pirate.
Yeah. So instead of talking like a wizard, you can talk like a pirate.
Rupee is the rupee. It's obviously from Zelda. But is it also the Indian currency as well? I think?
What do you mean it's from Zelda? It's from India first, I think.
No. India copied it. India copied the rupee from Zelda.
As a nation, the entire nation of India is actually in a massively prolonged lawsuit with the Nintendo Corporation.
This is true. But guys, jesting aside, it's completely free to join in. Just by turning up and participating, it's helping. But yeah, just anything you can give, really, really appreciated. And guys, with that, it leaves me, as always, with just enough time. Actually, if you want the battle cards that we've gone through, head over to Discord. You can find all the battle cards on there. Quinn usually remembers that one, but he didn't, so I've remembered it this week.
I mean, maybe I was waiting to use it at the end. You don't fucking
know. So guys, as always, it leaves me with just enough time to say stay well, keep safe, and until next time, bye for now.
See you. Go look at the Discord, because I was definitely going to say that at this point in the video.